It's good to have you here today. My name is Aramadu, and I welcome you and thank you for joining us today on this episode of our webinar series. This webinar series is sponsored by STEMacademy.io, LetslearnTV, and Brainiac STEM and Robotics. The webinar series is a platform that holistically seeks to engage the audience with relevant content that provides a quick start in career, education, entrepreneurship, business, and lots more. To kickstart this webinar series today, I have with me Ms. Mutiat Olagoke, our remarkable guest, who is a personal development coach and a trainer. Welcome, Miss Mutiat.
Thank you.
Our audience may be wondering who Ms. Mutiat is, so I'll just give a brief rundown. Ms. Mutiat Olagoke is a social entrepreneur. She's a communication expert. She's a publisher. She's a writer. She's a public speaker, an educational consultant, a coach, and a teacher. Okay, she runs Egret Media Concepts, a media company with a niche in education and self-development. She's the editor-in-chief, a publisher of Kids Digest. She's the chief moderator, Junior Debate League, a spelling challenge, and Muslima Speaks, and also the curator, World Speech Day Kids Lagos. She's passionate about inspiring self-development in children and adults. Mutiat has a bachelor's degree from the University of Ilorin, a certificate in entrepreneurship management from the Enterprise Development Center of the Pan-Atlantic University. She also has a certificate in teaching English language as a second language, amongst others. You'll agree with me that we have a very accomplished and remarkable guest here in the house today, who will be talking to us about effective communication. Effective communication is a soft skill that is needed today, both in the business world and in our day-to-day interaction with people. And so I would hand over to Ms. Mutiat as she gives us her presentation for today. So please stay tuned.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Am I loud and clear?
Yes, you are. It's good to have you here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored. I'm really honored to have been invited, and particularly to come and discuss my favorite topic in the world, which is communication. So, so how did I get here? My whole life I've been a talkative, and so I always talk and talk and talk. And then I started to write at a very early age. So talking and writing has always been my life's passion. And so to get an opportunity to actually do this for a living, it's a privilege, and to be honored to come to a prestigious platform like this. I hope that I do not disappoint, because this is big. It is a big deal for me. Thank you.
We believe you won't disappoint.
Amen. Okay, so can I have my slides put up?
Okay, so you can share your screen. You can share your screen by, okay, so there's, okay, so I'll ask Mr.
Yeah,
Sam,
I already sent the.
Share your screen.
Please share. I don't want to share my screen. I would rather have it shared for me.
Okay, so your slide is up.
Yeah. Okay, good. Okay. I want to. Okay, the slides are up. The topic for today is the principles of effective communication. And the very first thing we're starting with is something that I call a shocker. And here's a shocker: there is no one way to do it. And that's it. And it's something that a lot of people would come to me and say, you know, I hear people come and say, oh, I want to talk like you. Oh, I want to be sounding the way you're sounding. I want to do it like you do it. And the truth is that communication is a self-development skill. It is a soft skill, and it is very dependent on you. And so there's no one way to do it. You can't just sounding like Mutiat won't necessarily. The next slide. So we must start by understanding that there's no one style that works, And sounding like Mutia doesn't necessarily mean the only way to do it. And so there are different channels and there are different ways to do effective communication if you must. And so it's very important that the audience understand that. And so nobody's joining the class thinking that I'm going to tell them how to do their mouth or how to put their hands up or how to do this. No, we are going to be learning principles that work, that has been working since the beginning of time. However, the use of it, the application of these principles may vary. In some cases, you may need to apply more of another one. But the truth is that there's no one way to do it. And your way is fine as long as you're not offending anyone. So that's the introduction. So why is communication very, very, very important? Why is it important that we communicate effectively? Now, it is important that you pay attention to effective communication because communication is said to be the backbone of the society. As human beings, the primary way that we're able to be human is through communication. Imagine if we couldn't talk, we couldn't write, we can't make any body language cues, you can't do any sign language, you can't make any sound. We wouldn't be any different. You won't be any different from trees. We'll just be breathing in and out, and that's it. So being able to communicate is at the center of what makes us human beings. And so if that is agreed upon, what it means is that to truly be able to communicate effectively is a skill, or it is a skill or a requirement to thrive as a human being. So wherever you find yourself at work, in a relationship, whether it's a marriage or a friendship, even being a child, in whatever situation you find yourself, you would find that when you are an effective communicator, you would thrive. And that's it. You are going to thrive. So how, next slide, please. So what makes up effective communication? What does it mean to communicate effectively? Effective communication is a process of exchanging ideas, thoughts, knowledge, and information such that the purpose or intention is fulfilled in the best possible manner. So in simple words, what this means, the simple way to put this long definition is to say that effective communication is the presentation of views by the sender in a way that is best understood by the receiver. I like simple definitions. So the very, very academic definition is that it's a process of exchanging ideas, thoughts, knowledge, information for the purpose of serving a goal. Now, so simply put, you would say that it is the presentation of your views by you in a way that is understood by your audience, who is or are the receiver. So that's that. That's the next slide. So we move on to, so that's a simple definition. Effective communication is the presentation of views by the sender in a way that is best understood by the receiver. So how do you do that? So we're going to go back to our shocker in the beginning. And the shocker was that there's no one way to do it. And that's something you must understand. The way that I communicate effectively may not necessarily be the exact way that you as a person must do it, because there are certain factors that are unique to us as communicators. There are certain factors that must be put into consideration. One of it is the context. The context by which I apply certain principles will be different from the context that you apply. So there is no one effective communication style. However, there are certain principles that can be applied in every situation to achieve the understanding of your ideas by all audience. So whether the context would vary, the audience would vary, the things that are very unique and can't be subjected to one formula are going to vary. However, there are certain principles that, irrespective of the situation, of the context, when you apply them, you will achieve effective communication. But first, what are you doing wrong? What are you doing wrong now? Before we go to the principles, let's first do a self-assessment or self-analysis of our communication right now. So we go on to the next slide, affect our objectivity. So for instance, and this may not be as okay. So for instance, I wear the hijab. And if I met somebody who, the first thing they say to me is, oh, look at your hijab. Of course, the most natural emotion that would bring is anger. And from that moment onward, no matter how much sense that person makes, I may not actually, I'll just be like, this one that has and that has broken the effectiveness of that communication. Because I'm angry at this person, there's a prejudice already, and that prejudice will serve as what we call noise. And so a lot of times we are unable to separate our emotions from what is being said to us. A lot of people will be angry. The moment you mention something, it's a trigger for the anger, and no matter what you say afterwards, that's it. So you need to think about your attitude and your emotions. And this is an entire session on its own of learning objectivity and being able to filter your perspective, being able to use the right filter in order for you to really hear what is being said to you, because emotions can serve as a barrier that prevents you from truly hearing what is being said. So emotion can serve as a noise. So we call it emotional noise. Noise, I would probably say a lot of noise. Moving on, please know that what I mean by noise is not the general noise. It is being used because when people are making a noise, you can't hear anything over their noise. So basically, noise is anything that keeps you away from truly hearing what is being said to you. So we may use that a lot. Please put note. The next thing that will be affecting or is affecting your communication is the language barrier. The language barrier. I've met people who would tell me, I don't understand the English you're speaking. It used to be the most ridiculous feedback I hear, because I'm looking at them thinking, I am speaking English, the same English that you and I speak, but your own is different. My own is not different. What's different is that you assumed that I'm going to sound like you. And so the moment I didn't sound like you, the language has changed. There's still difficulty in listening. And that's why when people come to me and say, oh, I want to learn how to speak Fone, I say, I don't teach anybody how to speak Fone. To what gain would speaking Fone will achieve if your audience don't understand the Fone? So I would rather have you speak the language of your audience. And the language of your audience could be as obvious as you entering a room full of Yoruba people and speaking Yoruba, to as very, 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 what's the word? To you even speaking English and trying to pronounce the words the way the locals pronounce it. So for instance, the past tense of eat, to eat rice, is actually pronounced as the letter 8. So I ate rice last night. However, in Nigeria, the past tense of eat is ate. So as much as I would prefer to say, oh, I ate rice, I ate rice last night, I would, in a room where I know that, so sometimes I will say, oh, what did you eat last night? Oh, I ate rice. And people are like, don't you like rice? And I'm like, no, there was no H sound there. I didn't say I hate rice. I said I ate rice, meaning I hate rice. So to avoid certain misconception, to avoid the long talk, just say it and let everybody go. So language can be a barrier. So something as simple as it and it, even though the right pronunciation everywhere in the world except Nigeria is it, but majority of Nigerians say it. And so no matter how, you just realize that people, excuse, there was a point to mention, I don't understand. just because of one word. So it's key that you pay attention. And then there's also generational language. So some of us speak slangs in our local language. Some of us speak pidgin. Even within the local language, our mother tongue, your mother can say some things that you've never heard before. That doesn't make any meaning to you, even though you speak the same language. So for instance, Yoruba people, there are so many dialects, and people can be saying one thing with so many words. So these are things you must put into consideration. These may be the reasons that you are having problems communicating effectively. Next slide, please. So the next slide is cultural noise. So earlier I talked about emotional noise. Another challenge you may be having in your communication is cultural noise. People sometimes make stereotypical assumptions about others based on their cultural background. So let me use myself as an example. Of course, a lot of people really cannot tell whether I'm Yoruba or Hausa. So you would find me enter the room and somebody is going to assume that because I wear a hijab, then I must be from the north. And then next thing they're speaking Hausa to me. There's no way that person can be effective in communicating to me because the person has made an assumption that is untrue. And then when I say, because I would not even say I don't understand in English, I would say Banaji. And I say, what do you mean Banaji? Banaji, by the way, means I don't understand. So the person will say, oh, what do you mean you don't understand? Didn't you just say Banaji? If you understand Banaji, how come you don't understand? And then we start this long, unnecessary argument over nothing. I say, I don't understand Hausa because I am very Yoruba. So unless you're speaking Yoruba, can we speak English, please? So sometimes there's cultural noise. Sometimes it could be also as some of these assumptions could also be the way people say, Igbo people are very proud. And so an Igbo person walks into the room very confidently, and I must say that I'm a fan of Igbo people and their confidence, maybe because I teach it, because you do need some level of bragado to effectively communicate. Because one of the things you want to do with communication is to persuade people, and you truly have to be confident in order to do that. So an Igbo person entered the room, a Yoruba person would naturally just assume, oh, all these Igbo people, they're very full of themselves, and then they're not listening. And that's it, that's the barrier. Or you come and say something, there are 360 ethnic groups in the country, and all of us have one prejudice or the other against each other that is definitely affecting the unity of the country because we're not communicating effectively due to cultural noise. The next slide, please. Psychological barriers, physiological barriers. So from you having sore throat, which is from sore throat to the fact that you have poor hearing to poor eyesight, even pain can affect your effectiveness as a communicator. So for instance, one of my friends said that she used to greet somebody, one particular person, she liked the person, and every time she would greet the person and the person wouldn't answer. And she would be so annoyed and say, what kind of person is this? How would I be greeting you and you don't answer? That every time she greeted the person. And she used to see the person a lot and the person never answered. And so she was telling her sister, now for this your friend though, every time I greet her, she doesn't answer. I said, which friend? So okay, I'm going to tell her. So the sister saw the person and said, oh, every time my sister greets you, you don't answer. Why? She said, oh, wait, what side of, every time your sister greets me, what side does she greet me for? And the sister said, why? Because if she greets me from the left side, I can't hear properly on the left side. So no matter how loud you greet, I don't hear the greeting. And so because she has difficulty in hearing on one side over here, she's unable to return the greeting. But you are here making assumptions that she's a snob. Of course, naturally, I think to some level you are entitled to actually make that assumption. But it's nothing but an assumption because she didn't hear, not because she didn't want to hear, but because she doesn't have the ability to hear in that ear. And that's something that you must also consider too. Some people have what we call lisp, where they pronounce. So for me, for instance, I can't pronounce the sound R properly. So sometimes there are certain words where I want to say, and people be like, what are you saying? Because I have an R factor. And so when I'm saying certain words, you're not sure what I'm saying. And some people, theirs could be, I think I went to school with somebody who used to mix D and T. So when the person wants to say God, they actually say God. And imagine if you're saying, oh my God. And I'm like, what's wrong with your gut? Do you need to see a doctor for it? So that's also a physiological barrier. And it's something that you may need to check in yourself or even in the people you are talking to, because you may just be here angry that every time I'm speaking to this person, he's always saying nonsense, not knowing that he has a lisp or he can't just see. Okay, because eye contact, so how does eye affect your effective communication? Of course, making eye contact is key. My Yoruba people will say, literally, if I translate it literally, the word means the talk is in the eyes. So the talk is in the eyes, meaning that making eye contact is a big deal. So for somebody who can't see properly, I don't have to explain that. So the next one, the last thing that you may be doing wrong is ambiguity and abstractions overuse. So a lot of us, and this is something that particularly as teachers and motivators or public speakers, whatever we are, we need to consider this. Everybody needs to actually pay attention to it. But I find that a lot of times, particularly older people, when they're talking to young people or professionals, they actually say a lot of things halfway. So when you ask them, they say things like, why wouldn't the person know now? They should know. Never assume that your audience should know. It's an effective communication for her. You shouldn't assume that people know. Even if all you are going to do is to just brush over it. Just say, just so before we move on, can we quickly rewind and you don't have to take the entire speech to explain, the background, the background of your speech. However, you must not go on having conversations assuming that the person should know. As an entrepreneur, I've worked with a lot of interns and staff that used to drive me crazy until I understood that my problem was that I assumed that they should know because this person has BSc. He's supposed to automatically have all the sense. No, never assume that people should know. Don't say things I've said. You know how there's this Yoruba saying that would say things like you should say it I've said, when he entered the person will become a whole. No, don't let it enter the person to become a whole. Give the person a whole. In this today's world, that even when you give people a whole, they still don't get it. Then you want to give them half, really? And then you come back 1 hour later and find out that the person has done nonsense. And you're like, is this what I told you to do? And you're like, well, you didn't tell me to do that exact thing. And millennials, they're quite smart to remind you what you told them and not tell them. So no have said anything, no jargon, slangs. Some of these slangs can actually be very, very offensive. No generalization. If you were raised by your grandmother, unless the other person too was raised by your grandmother, no use of proverbs or sayings that they know it only in your village, but Lagosians don't understand. And then you say, did you understand what I'm saying? No, don't use idioms that people don't get. Some people, I think it was one of my junior brothers. So the first time he heard kick the bucket, he didn't know that it meant somebody died. It just meant that, why is the person kicking the bucket now? Does he want to break it? So when you generalize too much on the assumption that this is understood, it may be the reason why you are not being understood. So, and those are the things, those are 5 things that you could be doing wrong. All of the other things you're probably doing wrong can also be found under either or any of those 5 things, or they can just be unique on their own, because I did say that there's no one way, there's no one size fits all. Well, your problem could be a combination of all 5. It could be a combination of 2. It could be a combination of a problem that some of us have never heard before. That's the beauty of human beings. So how do you now get it right? So now that we've talked about some of the problems, challenges that we're having, let's talk about how to get it right.
All right, ma'am. So before we go into that, before we go into that, I'd like us to go for a short break.
Okay.
And when we come back, you tell us how we can get it right. It's been a very brilliant presentation from you.
So thank God. Okay, so how long is the break?
Okay, so we'll go on a short break for less than a minute, and then we'll be back.
Okay, thank you. So I can take a cup of tea.
Wow. Yeah, you can sip some tea.
Thank you.
All right, our viewers, thank you once again for joining us today on this webinar series. You would agree with me that it's really been on effective communication, sponsored by STEMacademy.io, LetslearnTV, and Brainiac STEMs and Robotics. Okay, so before we go on, I'll need you to subscribe to this channel by clicking on the subscribe button if you're on YouTube, and also click on the notification icon to get amazing updates from us. You don't want to miss any of our episodes. So before we went on the break, we had Ms. Mutiat Olagoke talking to us about effective communication, and it's really been a very brilliant presentation from her, learning the things not to do, how we usually get communication wrong. Okay, she has mentioned how emotions can prevent effective communication. She has mentioned the use of language. She has mentioned the stereotypical assumptions that could breach communication amongst people. And now we're going on to the next session, and she'll be telling us the things that we should do right, things that will help us effectively communicate. So over to you, Ms. Mutiat.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for having me. So we'll move on to the part 2 on how to effectively communicate using some of the principles that have been applied over time, and so how to get it right. So getting it right, the first thing is to understand yourself. And I know that a lot of people would say, oh, I understand myself now. But the truth is that a lot of times, majority of the time, the reason, okay, so next slide, please. I'm already, okay, so who are you? You need to ask yourself, who am I? And why do I tend to do what I do the way I do it? Because the truth is that sometimes the barrier that is affecting your effectiveness as a communicator must be as a result of who you are. So I was talking about before, on the other side, I was talking about understanding your, we're talking about lisp, the way you pronounce words, the way you listen. It's a big deal in communication. For any class that I teach as a soft skills coach, whether it's writing, whether it is speaking, time management, or anything, self-management, we always start with the question of who you are. Because who you are determines your success in virtually everything. So when you understand yourself as a communicator, for instance, you may not feel the need to change yourself for you to change the way you communicate, because you may feel like, what's there? Is it not how to talk? I'm tired of talking. Because you don't understand that the way you're talking is not working. And a lot of times people will say it is the other person's fault. Every time I'll be telling him, he will not answer me. Could you check whether it could be your fault too? So somebody comes, and I think a lot of times when you have women in the classroom, you tend to talk about marriage a lot, and then they come and say, oh, my husband doesn't say this. And last time I asked and I said, were you nagging it? I was not nagging, but when I say it, every time I say it, will not answer me. I say, could it be that the way you say it is offending? Every time you say it, say, no, but that's how I know how to talk. You may need to check how you talk, because how you talk may not be working for the other party. And this is me, use myself as an example. As much as I love to talk, I love to write, I needed to actually do a self-discovery journey, or start a self-discovery journey. And I must say it is a continuous journey for a long time till the end of your life, because I'm continuously there. And one of the things that I do after every encounter with people is to go home and reflect. Why did I react that way? Why was it a big deal that made me angry? We were talking about emotions in the beginning. What are the emotions? What are the words that invoke these emotions in me? Because sometimes some people are playing with me and they say one word and then we scatter the conversation. Because I'm like, no, I don't like that word. And person, but it's not play to me. You need to understand yourself enough to know what your triggers are. What are the things that would trigger your emotions? Another thing is, you want to be a preacher, or you want to be people who come, I want to be a motivational speaker, but you don't sound persuasive. You want to be a politician, but you're sounding like you may need someone else to be your campaign manager. Voice, it's true. Your voice, you sounding like you want to be a teacher for secondary school children in SS3 that never listen to anyone, and then you're sounding like my geography teacher in SS2, whom I don't understand what because our voice, our carriage, everything doesn't sound like somebody that should be teaching 60-something students who don't listen to anyone. And she doesn't even make any effort. And I would assume that she'll probably go to the staff room and tell people that, those children, they're very stubborn, they don't listen. But the same class is being taught by an English teacher who doesn't necessarily shout or do anything. But the things that Mr. Esson has taught me in SS2, I am still using it in my writing now as an adult. How many years back? And I'm still using it. And so if Ms. Ario goes to say the kids don't listen, they're just like goats, what would Mr. Esson say? But they listen to me. So the question is, it's not about the kids now, it's about the teacher as a communicator. So sometimes, and it's not even sometimes, a lot of times, you must consider yourself as an entity that must take responsibility in every conversation that you're in. Because one of the things that I like to believe is that no matter how bad things get, if two people are involved, one person cannot be 100% responsible for it going bad. The other person, the two of you would have a responsibility. Because sometimes you keeping quiet is the most effective thing to do in a conversation. But no, because in your own village, it's not possible that you will keep quiet. So you're like, I cannot keep quiet for anyone. Why can't you keep quiet for anyone? It's a question you must ask yourself. Some people say, I cannot say sorry. Sorry is hard for me. Why is sorry hard for you? Because sorry is not hard for me. Me, I will say sorry to even have peace. So sometimes I will say sorry to patronize people. So the question is, why? You must ask yourself, who are you? Why do you do what you do the way you do it? And how does it affect your effectiveness as a communicator? So for some people, I've had people that maybe they start talking, I look at them and say, you need a class on self-awareness and management. You cannot even move forward. And these are people, I've had people who, somebody was a real estate agent, no, not agent per se, she was supervising artisans on a site, and then she comes back to say those people, they are illiterate, they don't know how to listen, they don't know how to do this. And I looked at her and I said, have you considered the fact that you are not communicating to them as illiterate? You are frustrated because you keep communicating to them as a graduate. Have you considered you and your own excesses may also be a barrier in effective communication? And after this conversation, I think she came back a couple of weeks back and said, thank you. I can now see what I do wrong, because she was able to put herself in the situation and then, kind of like put herself under the microscope and find all the things that she could do better. So you need to understand yourself and how you are getting in the way of your own effectiveness as a communicator. So the next slide is, so you know who you are, but do you know your audience? Now, don't tell me, yeah, but my audience is my son. I know him, now not be me born him. No. Sometimes it's not about you giving birth to them. A lot of parents do not know even their own kids. So people will complain to me about their kids and how they don't listen. And I say, well, you know that you're talking about a toddler, right? Like naturally, the way they are wired, they're not supposed to sit still for more than 10 minutes. In fact, it's a miracle that they can sit still to listen to you for 10 minutes. And like, hey, what do you mean? When I was that age? No, when you were that age, you were no different. It's not possible. It's not possible. It is the human nature. How do you want to have a toddler who sits still for 30 minutes listening to your lecture? How? You need to understand your audience. So that's a toddler. In order to get a toddler to remember something, you need to repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat. But if you do the same method, if you use the same method for a teen, you may be having a problem, because it's going to be like, why are you always repeating something? I heard now. Maybe you said it yesterday. You said it the other day. This is my mommy safe. Because he's not a toddler. But you keep looking at the poor 16-year-old boy and you keep seeing your 2-year-old son. And you say, but I know him, I born him. No, you don't born him, because apparently you're not paying attention to his milestone. You need to understand your audience. At work, some people will talk to their colleague at work the way they will talk to their mother at home, whether it's too respectful or no, whatever it is. Some people would say, I hear people say, I don't care. That's how me I talk. You must care what the audience feel. If you want to achieve effectiveness as a communicator, you must understand your audience and how they listen. It is important to understand your audience, their natural tendencies. Like I just said, toddlers don't sit still. What motivates them? What inspires them? You're trying to get somebody to buy something. You're not saying, but they need it now. Then they know that Corona is outside. It has nothing to do with what you think, because your own motivation is different from their own motivation. You must consider your audience goal, your audience challenges. What are their pain points? Why is what you're talking about important? What are their backgrounds? What's their attitude to this? Why is this an opportunity for them to take? Understanding your audience is key. Let me use another example of people in marriage. A lot of people would say, my husband complains that I nag, but he doesn't listen. And I always say that go back home and listen to you talk to your husband, and you will find yourself talking to him the same way you talk to your child. And a lot of times this is true. And I'm saying this because I'm a woman and I interact with women mostly. You will find, even some men do it. You talk to your wife, you talk to your spouse the same way you talk to your child. And you're assuming and you're wondering why the person is always offended. You talk to your colleague at work because they made a mistake. It doesn't mean you talk to them like a child. You must understand your audience. And one of the things you must understand about men or even people at the workplace is that everybody has ego. And it is important that you must consider that ego when you communicate with them. Don't just say it and say, I'm saying the truth. The truth has no meaning. The truth has no meaning if your audience don't accept it. There's no need for any truth that is not going to be accepted. So if you must say the truth, You must say it the way your audience listen. And that's it. Understand the way your audience listen. And the way your audience listen is affected by what your audience tendency, their motivation, their goals, their challenges, their opportunities, and their pain points. So the next slide. For every communication, for everything, there's a goal. The unfortunate thing is that a lot of us do not recognize the goal. Because you've been talking your life, it doesn't mean that, oh, I'm an expert in that, I've been doing it now. A lot of people have conversations without goals. So when they hear goal, which one is this one? Are we building a house? Yeah, literally, you are building houses. For every time you open your mouth, you're building something, or you're bringing something down. And if communication is such a vital part of who we are or what we are as human beings, it is key that you recognize that there's always a goal. And the question you must ask yourself in every conversation is, what is the goal? So you want to complain that this man throws his socks on the floor. What is the goal? To make sure he stops. So if you want to make sure he stops, the question is, how do I say it so that he stops? Now, so you hear people say, I'm not going to be saying it like clear. Is it not the one doing something wrong? Can't you see that is wrong? Well, if you say you don't care, your goal will not be achieved. You must determine what you want your audience to do or get out of your communication. You do not just rant for the sake of ranting because you must say your mind. If you need to say your mind, go and pay your psychologist or pay a therapist to listen to your mind. At least they will listen without judging you. You can even come and pay me safe. I like listening to people without judging them. But if you must say your mind to people, you must remember that there's a goal for saying it. Unless the goal is to just say your mind and offend everybody and go away, then you must consider it. Even if it is to say your mind and you still don't plan, you will still end up not saying your mind, because before you say two things, somebody will just come and say, ugh. So you must recognize what this goal is. The goal is to stop the child from watching too much TV. So what do I do to stop it? So communication is not something that you do offhand, you do without thought, you do because you feel like it. No, effective communication is to put a lot of things into consideration in order for it to be achieved. You need to figure out your outcome and be very intentional about crafting a process that will help you achieve that. And one of the things that I like to say is that no matter how annoying the situation is, no matter how the person is low to you or whatever it is, whatever emotion it invokes in you, you must remember that your ego that the goal must be bigger than your ego. The goal must always be bigger than your ego, because that's the only way, because your ego is a noise. The moment you say, oh, I cannot say sorry. I cannot be the first person to say sorry. So you would rather have your relationship deteriorate and say, no, I don't want it to deteriorate, or I want us to make up. But why can't you say sorry? I cannot just say sorry in you. I can't be the first person. But the goal must be bigger than your ego. Now, if the goal is to make up, say the sorry and go away. And this is not just for women alone, it's for men too, particularly for men, because they don't want to say sorry at all. At work, there are some times when you will just have to keep quiet for your subordinate. Not because, who does it feel like that is not the one talking when I'm there? It's not about you. It's about achieving the goal, allowing conversation to happen so that a goal can be met. Don't shut everybody up because they are children or they are smaller or don't shut anybody up because you hate them, because of whatever prejudice you have. No, you must recognize that for effective communication, the goal has to be bigger than your ego. And so focus on the goal. In fact, it's also important to focus on the goal so that you don't even end up derailing from the goal. So for instance, I'm going to go and see my boss and tell him to increase my salary. And then you get there and you say something, your boss is saying something, and then you got angry and you left. You could have just stayed your ground, swallow whatever he's saying, and then explain to him again clearly. Or you get there, you started saying nothing, and then the conversation veered away from what you intended in the first place. No. Think about the goal. Am I persuading them? Am I trying to inform them? What actions do I want them to do afterwards? And then think of a strategy to help you achieve that goal. So the next slide. Now this one is a very, very tricky one. Listen actively. A lot of times when people ask me what one advice you would give us, if you ask me one advice for effective communication, I will say listen. I say, listen, Babu. I'm trying to learn how to talk well. Then listen. Listen. For you to be able to communicate effectively, you must be an active listener. You must be an amazing listener. And when we say active listener, it's not that you're keeping quiet alone. No. It's not that you keep quiet and you're saying, see the nonsense this one is saying in your chest. No. You actually quiet your mind and every prejudice, every commentary, because some of us are we are experts in running commentary in our heads, even when we are looking at the person. If person, are you listening? But we're not listening. In our heads, we're already translating it in our local language. So that's what you mean. Are you listening? But you're not listening. That's not active listening. Don't translate anything. Don't translate anything. Don't assume anything. Active listening is to remove all prejudice, all expectations, remove all the barriers, and truly hear what the person is saying. I used to have a problem when I was in university, when I met one girl that would come and say things like, that's not what Muti want to say. And I was a very plain, I still am a very plain speaker. Whatever I say is what I say. But because some of us were raised by somebody saying A, you're like, no, that's not what you mean. It was B that you mean. And I'm like, how? But I said A now, but it's B that you wanted to say. Don't be that kind of listener. It's terrible for a relationship. In fact, I don't even remember if I still talk to that person now, because I don't want to talk to anybody that I'm going to say A and they will say I say A, B, C. It's annoying. It's destructive for your effectiveness as a communicator. A lot of us are destroying friendship, relationship, even work. At work, nobody gets you, because when they say A, you are assuming they mean B. You need to be an active listener. It is not enough to merely listen. You also want to make sure that other people also feel heard. And one of the ways to do it, listen without any noise in your head. You can also nod. It's key that you nod. Give them all their attention. Please stop pressing your phone when somebody's talking to you. Put the phone down. You can always get to it. If you know that you need to press your phone while the person is talking, tell the person to come back. But all the time they're asking is probably just 10 minutes of your full attention. So give it. Don't be looking away. I particularly have a problem with making eye contact with people, and it's not for anything. It's just a problem that I have. So you must note, so I know that. So one of the things I try to do is to nod. I try to say things like, okay, So I use single words like, that's cool. So what happened next? Use little cues like that to encourage the person to keep talking so that they feel heard. Don't come and do your face like you are hungry. And the person say, are you listening? I'm listening now. But you don't look like you're listening. So you need to make the person also feel heard. Most times, a lot of us listen to react. We are not listening to hear. We listen to react. Me too, I will show you. You think you can talk. That's why we listen. No, don't listen. Don't listen to give them clap back. Don't listen to give your own lap back. It's not about that. It's about a goal. Focus on the goal. And a lot of times the goal is always to get things done. But if you are listening to show the person pepper, you're not going to get anything done. Next slide. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Please go back to the slide before. Keep it simple. Now this one, So when I'm moderating events in Nigeria, And Nigerians want to answer questions, ask questions. And you say things like, we don't have a lot of time. Please quickly ask your questions. And the person will say, please, I'm sorry. I need to explain the background story. And then they will start. And this person is still talking in 5 minutes. And I'm like, please, what's the exact question? I've not gotten there. I'm just explaining that my landlord, no. Can we stop having conversations like that? Why do you assume that you need a background? You and your boss and your colleagues have been working on something. Why do you need to be telling us the same thing that everybody already knows? You need to repeat it because you want to insist, or you want to show that, I've been playing my part, or is the rest of it that have not been playing your part. You must keep it as simple as possible. Whether whether it's the length of the words you're using, or even the meaning of it. Some people think that they need to speak big English for them to sound smart. It is not true. It is not true. Stop using big English to carry people's soup. I say, no, I must speak big English to those people so that they will know I went to school. What's the point of speaking big English to an audience that don't understand it? It doesn't make any sense. Keep it simple. Whether in length or in words, keep the words simple. Look for the simplest word to describe anything, the simplest way to describe anything. If you have a speech to do in 10 minutes, the only thing you owe your audience is 3 concise points. In fact, in 1 hour, that's all your audience will remember, 3 points. Probably speakers will say you only owe your audience 3 points because they will not, all the other points, they won't remember it. So if your audience would not remember it, what it means is that the longer your speech, the more noise you are having for them to remember. So keep it as simple as possible. Sometimes you're talking to work for people that are tired. You now start, everybody sit down. You now start long story, or overwhelmed. Somebody went to work since morning and then I'm getting home and then you want to be telling me how the gatesman did. And please, can you get straight to the point? Is it that you want money to buy something or what? And this is what I do. So I get my carpenter do this to me all the time. He calls and he will start telling me story. I'm lining up in machine. And I'm like, what exactly do you want? Let me explain. Don't explain anything. What do you want? Because this story, you just want to tell me that you're about to disappoint me. Oh, yeah, tell me. And then say, okay, I'm just saying that it will not be as early as you think. Exactly. Don't tell me long stories. I don't care. Keep it simple. So, and I think that a lot of audiences are actually like me, particularly if they are clients or your boss. Nobody has time for long explanation. Just tell us what has gone wrong and what we can do about it. Full stop. And the next thing to also consider for effective communication is find a perfect time. Next slide. Find a perfect time, please. Nobody should be calling me 6 a.m. in the morning to come and be telling me to do stuff for them. And I wake up okay, so today, for instance, I saw somebody's WhatsApp message on an SOS at 12:30, or was it 11:30? Really? I sleep at 9:30, people. Don't send me a message at 11:30. I don't want to talk about work at 11:30. I've had a long day. The last thing I want to talk about is solving a problem for you. And unless somebody is dying and I'm the only one that can keep them alive, please don't send a message. And that's the same thing with everyone. You need to find a perfect time. Your children are having fun. That's the time you want to be telling them about worshiping God in the middle of a child that is playing. I'm not saying that you shouldn't talk to them about God. I'm saying that for the message to be profound, you will need to find the right time to do it. A child is staring at his ball and you keep preaching and preaching and preaching. Do you think he's listening? No. The same thing with your colleague at work. You need to find a good time. A good idea is only good when it comes at the right time. And this is one of the ways that we say that the effective communication styles are not one size fits all, because the time that will work for me may not, that in fact the time that worked for me this month may not work for me next month. And that's just me, the same person. So you must think about it. Time is key. Don't just say it. Some people will be dropping bombshell in the middle of traffic. You'll be dropping, somebody is happy and smiling. That's when you want to tell me that my grandfather died. Of course. Or you know, my grandfather died. Or you want to be making sense at a time when the last thing I need is that sense. As an effective communicator, you need to be on the lookout for a window of opportunities that allows you to be the most effective. So when you're offering a solution to somebody, you should offer it at a time that your audience gets it. Your audience will appreciate it. That's the only way to get the message across effectively. So the next slide. Find the right medium. Find the right medium. Now, it's one thing to know, oh, 12 o'clock is a great time to talk to Mutiat. It's another thing to know which medium works. So sometimes I like to take emails because I can always find them 2 years from now. So if you sent it to me on WhatsApp and then you are reminding me about it next month, something could have happened to my website and my WhatsApp. Sometimes I want to take a phone call because the conversation, the sensitivity of it may require hearing my voice. And sometimes I would rather just have you leave a chat. I always prefer, majority of the times I'll prefer you drop in a chat. I'm not a fan of people expecting me to reply immediately because right now, imagine if somebody's trying to call me right now, I can't pick the call now. So I always prefer a chat. I will always find it and reply you when I can. So for some people, they don't like chat. They'll rather call. So one of my friends would rather you call him, don't chat him. He will not even answer. And for some other people, it's one face-to-face. They don't say it over the phone. It has to be face-to-face. So context about where and how your communication is being consumed is a vital factor to consider. For instance, you talk differently on the phone, face-to-face, because the other person can't see your face. And so it depends on the person. And that's why we say you should understand your audience. How do your audience listen? What medium works for them? You must understand the context. What are you talking about? If it's something urgent, why do you need to come to my house for something urgent? You can always just call. If I'm unable to pick, drop a voice note. I'll get to it as soon as I can. But if you need to come to my house, that may take forever. So that's something that you should think about when you are effectively communicating. Some people want to rant about something that somebody did. You are leaving 5 voice notes on their phone and you think that's effective, or you are calling them on voicemail and everybody at work can actually hear you shouting at your best friend because she unintentionally wore your shoes to work, etc., etc. And I believe that's the final one. Okay, and then the next slide, the next one is you must mind your non-verbal cues. Next slide, please. Next slide, okay. Mind your non-verbal cues. Now, non-verbal cues are your body language. Now, a lot of research have shown that the words that we speak are actually not the most important thing in communication. In fact, they say more than half the percentage of importance, more than half of it goes to non-verbal communication, non-verbal cues, body language. So there are different kind of research and different kind of percentage, but the ones that I like to go with says that 80% of, so 7% is for the words you say, 13% is for the tone you carry, and then the remaining 80% is actually on your body language. I think that the most liberal research says 55%. So between 55% between 55 and 80% of your communication, effective communication, relies on your body language. So when I used to say that, when I say A, somebody will say I say B, I think that one of the mistakes I used to make back then was that I can be very flat in my tone, or sometimes my body language would be saying a different thing from what I'm saying. Because me, as a person, I remember that the first thing we said is understand yourself. So me as a person, I am always multitasking in my head. My head, in fact, I just tamed it before. I'm always thinking, my brain is scattered, thinking about 20, 50 things actively at the same time. Like the brain is always thinking about millions of things and taking millions of information. But me, without exaggerating, I'm literally using actively at least 3 things every second that I'm actively paying attention to. So it's always jaga jaga in a very jaga jaga way. So it's always full. I pay too much attention to too many things at a goal. So when you ask me, oh, Muti, can you use it? I'm already thinking of something in my head. So I say yes. But my body language is actually paying attention to that thing in my head and not what you just said. And so when I say yes, the person goes, oh, that your yes doesn't sound like yes. It sounds like no. I'm like, but I just told you yes. But you look like you wanted to say no. I don't look like, but legitimately, I do look like I wanted to say no. But it wasn't no for that person. It probably no for something else in my head. So you must recognize, and that's why I say you must understand yourself, because you also need to understand your non-verbal cues as a person. Is your body saying yes when you really meant to say no? What kind of tone are you carrying? So you must get, and then it's not also about you, it's also your audience too. Look at the picture that I have on the slide. So you look at somebody looking like they are confused, but you think, I'm making so much sense. See the way this person is paying attention. But the person actually looked confused. And you keep going. Don't keep going. Stop and say, are you lost? Should I come back? Do you have any question? Is there something you'd like me to explain? Because you can't keep talking because you want to talk. You must pay attention to your audience, because their non-verbal cues are actually feedback on your effectiveness as a speaker. Pay attention. You want to nag at somebody, but the moment you say, hey, you see that the person's ankles are already raised. You can see from their shoulders that they are ready to fight. And then you're wondering, hey, I didn't know that you are in a good mood. You should know. It shows on the body. You will see it. Not a lot of us have mastered it. There's some people that have mastered stillness well, but majority of us haven't. So you must pay attention to what it is. Okay? So finally, you should be open to feedback. Be open to feedback. A lot of times you keep doing it wrong because nobody can tell you you are wrong, because nobody can call your attention to something. Some people are even afraid to tell you they don't understand, so they just keep nodding. Because the moment they tell you like this, the moment they tell you, please, I didn't understand. How will you understand? When you will not listen. When I was talking, you were looking at another place. You will not understand. You are not always understanding. Please, for God's sake, the goal must be bigger than your ego. And if the goal is for that person to understand, you don't have to shame them when they don't understand. Because a lot of times, they may not understand because you haven't done your homework well as a speaker, not because they're terrible listeners. Of course, a lot of people are terrible listeners. But if you truly see, the way I've been talking over these slides is not too fast, it's not too slow. I'm a very fast talker. But the truth is that if I say this very fast, some people will be lost. And that's why I need to maintain a certain pace. That's a technique of presentation that you may need to learn, because sometimes you're talking too fast. Sometimes you're using too big English. Sometimes you don't even have nice slides to even help your audience to engage, to get the attention of your audience. You just keep, if they like, they should not listen. They should not listen. It was my own business. It is your business that your audience understand, because that's the goal. The ultimate goal is that they understand. And at no time must you take feedback for granted. Yes, we get feedback that comes off as criticism, that points at our mistakes. And some people are terrible with giving feedback. There's actually a need for giving feedback in communication. Probably there's another class, but there's a technique in it. And so if you are the one that is going to give feedback, for instance, one of the things you must put into consideration is that you should not, the feedback is not on the person. It's not about the person. Don't look at me and say, because the content was too much for me. I would really have loved it if it had been more concise. Now, if you say, Muti, you can't talk too much, you're just abusing me as a person. You haven't given me feedback on the presentation. So you must learn to give correct feedback. And always, one of the best ways to give feedback is to start with an appreciation of what the person has done. Muti, mashallah, well done on the class, well done, God bless you for all you taught. And then you say, however, the class was too much the content was too much for me. I'd have loved it if it was half with another thank you. But thank you so much for your time. But I took a few things. I'm going to focus on those and come back for the feedback without offending me. This person has given me feedback, so I'm happy that they said they enjoyed it. And then I've also learned next time I'll probably use 15 slides because my audience thinks it's too much. Do I feel like the audience doesn't appreciate what I've done? Definitely not, because the audience just told me they did. They just would have loved it to be smaller. So do not see feedback as an attack on your person. And please do not give feedback to attack the person either. Don't attack the person. Stop as bosses and leaders. Don't tell you, don't you have sense? That's an attack on the person. The person has made a mistake. Just point to the mistake. And if somebody told you, don't you have sense, I know that it's going to be hard, but I have learned to actually just filter that away. Now, this person doesn't know how to give feedback. And I actually teach people. I continuously teach people on how to give me feedback. But then I have a lot of audacity that majority of us don't have. But I think anybody can learn to have audacity to actually say that I would prefer you giving me this feedback this way. And I say it a lot of times. So I called my business advisor about something a couple of years back, and then he was yelling on the phone. And I told him, I'm going to call you back later when you're not so stressed to be yelling at me. And then he called me back in 15 minutes and said, I'm sorry, okay, let's talk about it. Fine. I refuse to sit down in that conversation and be yelled at and then feel like I'm the one that's done anything. I've not done anything wrong. He's the one yelling. It's as simple as that. So feedback, they are very amazing. It's a two-way process. It will help you get better. Do not see, I know a lot of people are not communicating and not speaking up and not, because the fear of criticism is one of the biggest fears in the world. So that's that. And finally, the last slide, please. In conclusion, there may not be, there's no one effective, let me take that. There's no one effective communication style, but no matter the style you choose to adopt, remember that the ultimate goal of communication is to pass on the information to the audience in such a manner that it does not lose its significance and your goal is achieved. So your words are not watered down in your bid to achieve your goal. So just then you start to water down the importance of that correction, or you overdo it because it's very, very important to you. You must find a way that helps you achieve this. Always be bigger than your ego. My best wishes to you. Thank you for listening.
Wow. Wow. It's really been a great time having you here today, Miss Mutiat. You have done excellently well. And I
Thank
must
you.
thank you very much for the way you have gone with your presentation. You took us from the mistakes being made in effective communication and told us how best to communicate. You have mentioned active listening. You have mentioned not putting our ego before the goal. You have mentioned, as a communicator, getting to understand ourselves and also understand the audience we are communicating with. And I must say that we have learned, we have unlearned, and then we have relearned the good tenets for effective um, communication and engagement. I don't know if we
Yeah,
have questions on
I think they said they have questions.
YouTube. Okay, so would take a few minutes to answer some of the questions. Okay. So can we have the questions? Okay, so before the question comes in, I'd like to ask a question. You talked
Okay.
about not watering down the essence of an objective in an engagement. What
Yeah.
are the ways we can, as a communicate, as someone who is communicating, what are the ways you can communicate without watering down what you want to say? For instance, you need to pass the message across. It's very important. But at the same time, you need to also put it in a way that it is friendly to the person. The person will not take offense. So what are simple ways to approach it? Like you mentioned, you gave an example of first saying maybe thank you, applauding the person, and then going on to say what you want to say as per feedback. So can you give us some words that should be out of a feedback? For instance, I need to give feedback on a particular scenario. What are the words I should not use? And what are words I can use to ensure that
Okay, so
I'm not using a brick wall?
okay, so a lot of times they would say that you should, there are different techniques, and some people will say you should focus on using I words, like I think, I believe. So it's not like, your work is always like this. No, I think that your work can get better. I think. Now, for me personally, irrespective of whatever use of words, it is key that you must know that the goal of the feedback is not to offend the audience. The goal of it is not to show the person like, what's this one feeling like? He thinks I can do it. Because a lot of times our ego is mixed up in what we do. But it is important for you to recognize, like I said, the goal. And if you don't want to water anything down, that's where you need to consider the context. The context, the timing, the medium. If you are avoiding to water anything down in a situation where you want to be serious, some conversation may require that if you use a chat, it will be watered down. Another thing, and this one is very, very important, irrespective of what you're doing, is assertiveness. As a communicator, you must learn assertiveness. Because if you are passive, I just want to say that you should not be doing your graphics like this. That's passive. You've just watered everything down. Be assertive. Now, when you're assertive is the middle line between passive and aggressive. Now, aggressive is, why are you always doing it like this? Passive is, it's not like that. An assertive person, whether you want to give feedback to your boss or you want to give feedback to your subordinate, assertiveness means that if your tone, the time of giving it, you don't want to water it down, so you want to give somebody a feedback in the toilet, for instance. Everybody has gone there to the toilet to do something, and you're like, hey, I don't want to tell you that your graphics, you need to, why are you having a conversation there? Why don't you tell the person, come with your laptop, and then you talk about it? So you need to set the setting and then use I word. I think, I believe you can do it this way. Why is that important? Because you are able to express your own feelings. Because see, for instance, at work, heart is a personal thing. What you think is fine may not particularly be fine to the person. Or you don't, but okay, so for instance, you say, maybe you should do like, don't say maybe you should do like this. If you are the boss, what do you want them to do? So you say, I want this. So I lead like 3 different teams. And so as much as I don't want to be on their neck forming like, oh, I'm the boss here, there are days when I just get to the group and I say, well done, everyone. However, me, I don't like it. And I'm putting it down. So it's not like it is bad. I'm just saying it's not working for me. And since I am the editor-in-chief here, and I'm responsible for keeping, I know that my job is to keep the brand going, and I can see the brand picture, and sometimes your audience may not see the picture that you are seeing. So it is your job to effectively, assertively insist that this is the way they should do it. And let me lastly, in feedback giving that I explained, we call it the sandwich feedback technique. So say something nice, say what you want to say as nice as possible without watering it down. Just be firm. Oh, well done. If all the person has done well is the time they have put into it, say it. Don't say, well done, you have tried. No. Well done for putting the time into it. However, this is not what I asked you to do. This is what I asked for. Please go back and do it again. But I appreciate that you have put the time into it. So go. So I started nicely. I said exactly what I wanted to say, and I ended it with an appreciation. Nobody's fighting. It works for me. I don't know. And then remember your tone. Don't come and be sounding nice when you don't want to, but don't sound offended either. Assertive.
Great. Okay. There's also a mention of the word but. Okay, so I've heard of situations where you say, thank you very much, but. And from what I have learned, that but is a negative infusion into a statement. So if you say, thank you for doing this, or this looks good, but what do you have to say about that? The word but, is it okay to you?
Me personally, so however, I usually use however a lot because it's actually but a lot of people are not used to it, so they're not offended by it. so see, I think that is because people talk with so many commas in their talk. I always talk with full stop. This is nice. And I will put a compliment. So if the person was Muslim, for instance, this is nice, mashallah. Oh, this is nice, well done. Full stop. Then I move on. However, I don't like this color. I don't like this color. But yes, the sentence is, because but is contrasting. It's a conjunction that contrasts.
Yeah.
So you just gave something nice and then you're contrasting. No, give a full nice compliment, end it with an end punctuation, then you start another statement. So the person will not say, so you just, the person can take down one statement and hug it. I think there are a lot of times, I think there was a part where I mentioned that we say things halfway. A lot of times we just have things, don't say, nobody's catching you, separate everything. And when I say the sandwich, you know how a burger is, a bread is not the same thing as the meat in the middle. So the sentences must end, punctuate them, separate them. And when you're done giving your feedback, remember to close it with something nice too, in case the person forgot. So you remind them that, but I like that you even tried. Some people cannot even try like this. Well done. Okay. And they'll go and do it. They say, thank you, ma. I'll try my best next time. I use it for my staff all the time. And a lot of times they don't disappoint me. Even when they disappoint me, I keep telling them until they undisappoint me. So.
All right. So thank you very much. Our time has been wonderfully spent. We will be taking a minute break right now, and then when we come back, you have some questions to answer. So, okay. Yes, so we'll be back in a minute. seeks to engage our audience with relevant content that provides a quick start in career, education, entrepreneurship, business, and lots more. This webinar series is sponsored by STEMacademy.io, LetslearnTV, and Brainiac STEM and Robotics. Okay, so if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please subscribe to this channel by clicking on the subscribe button on our YouTube page, and also click on the notification icon to get amazing updates from us. You don't want to miss any of our episodes. So welcome back, Ms. Mutiat, and thank you for sticking with us up until this time. We have some questions from the audience I'll be posing to you, so I'll be reading them out.
Okay.
Okay, so the first question here is, okay, can you restate the statistics you gave on language communication? Can you restate the statistics you gave on language communication?
Okay, I think that was when I was talking about body language and all.
Yeah.
So, so it's divided. The main component of communication when you're speaking are the words that is coming out of your mouth, your tone, and then non-verbal cues, your body language and co. So research has it that I like to go with the one that says so 80% of what you're saying is in your body language. However, the most, I think the 80% and then 13% is in, yes, that's a, yes, well, how do you work in a team? We said that communication is the backbone of the society. As human beings, communication is very important to us. And so, in fact, these days, we have moved on from,
okay, so we'll take the question again because the connection was lost. So we'll take the second question, or you can just quickly talk about the statistics on language communication before we move on to the next question.
So the statistics is 80% of what you're saying is your body language, 7%, 13% is your tone, and 7% is words, are your words. And a lot of people come and say, oh, everybody at work is judging me. But I'm always saying,
you said it is how you said it, because they are paying attention to the tone of your voice and then to your non-verbal cues.
There's no, what's the point of the truth that people will not accept?
Will not accept.
Like, it doesn't have any sense. You just be carrying your truth about. It's like being a prophet that nobody follows.
So it's really not about the what, but also about the how.
The how is a big deal.
Yeah.
The how is a big deal. A lot of people, for people who've joined this class, for some people, what they've learned here is all the things they need to move to the next level. For some people, the problem is deeper. So they truly need to take a class, a real course on how to do it well, because some of those things have been a part of us our whole lives. And so we don't know how to do any better until somebody says, oh, that's not how to do it. So yes.
True. Okay, so we'll be taking the next question. And the person was trying to ask, is effective communication ability assessed by recruiters? Do recruiters assess potential candidates' ability to effectively communicate?
Yes. According to the World Economic Forum, one of the top 10 skills for 21st century is communication. Then we have collaboration, we have network, critical thinking, and all of these are actually effective communication skills. So if you have effective communication skills, 3 or 4 out of 10 critical skills that you need to succeed in the 21st century, then what are you talking about? Of course, how am I going to employ you when you can't write a simple email? How am I going to employ you when you don't know how to have conversation with people in a team? A lot of workplace, you would need to collaborate with people, and one of the skill you need to collaborate is communication, or the skills you need in all forms. So recruiters are paying attention. For some jobs where you can learn along the way, you may be employed based on your hard skills. But when you start moving up the ladder to managerial level, they start paying attention to soft skills. So you will find some people, you may be the most hardworking person at work, but the person who got promoted was just the one person who knows how to talk. And you're like, but the guy, he only have mouth. Yes, because he can influence with his mouth. He can lead. He doesn't even know how to, he doesn't need to know how to do it. He can get people to do it. And so he makes a better manager than you that you can do it. In fact, you're so bad that you can do it and you don't know how to get people to do it, that you will do all the work by yourself. Nobody sends you. Because the point of the workplace is to engage everybody and make sure everybody pulls their weight. That because you can do it and you can do, I have energy. No, that doesn't make you a good leader. So you will find that the most successful leaders of all times were not people who particularly have the skill or anything. They can influence through communication, and that's it. And that's it.
Wow.
So yes.
So you have talked about effective communication and how it's very critical within a team. Okay, so you just talked about team building in a way and how effective communication is important within a team. Okay, we have another question here from Teresa, and she wants to know the role effective communication has in conflict management, and also what are the things to note when applying effective communication in conflict management. So she wants to know the role of effective communication in conflict management, and also the things to note when applying effective communication in conflict management.
Again, it is important. If you look at a lot of the conflicts that is going on anywhere, whether at work, at home, anywhere, a lot of times it's due to a breakdown in communication. And when you sit the two parties down, you will find out that everybody was actually saying the same thing in different ways. We are most times, usually a situation of 9 and 6. So one person is saying 6 and insisting that it is 6. The other person is saying 9 because they are on the other side and they are insisting it is 9. All it would have taken would be that, okay, come to my side and come and see what I'm saying. Well, come to my side. And that's where what's the word? That's where EQ comes from. In conflict management, effective communication is applied through, when you're showing your emotional intelligence skills, come over. So you're able to show empathy and all the other things that has to do with EQ. However, you must note that at the core of every conflict is because of a breakdown in communication, and that's it. So the moment that we can't communicate anymore, we can't convince each other, we won't be able to see things. How are you able to see things the way the other person sees it? When you're not even communicating enough, when you're not listening to hear what the person's pain point is, when you are not, and this is where active listening is there. When you don't even understand your audience, we talked about understanding audience, you don't even understand what that person is going through, or what that person is seeing, or how that person is filtering it. So that's it, is everything. Every single thing I've talked about this afternoon can be responsible for a break in transmission. Can be responsible for a break in communication and can lead to conflict resolution. So when you're trying to resolve conflict, one of the things that you must use communication, how to ensure that both parties actually understand how each other listen. So if I keep shouting at the top of my voice to somebody who doesn't want to be shouted at, no matter how long I go on saying what is paining me, the person won't listen and the conflict won't be resolved. So you must understand your audience, you must understand how they listen, you must actively listen and apply majority of all the principles of effective communication if you want to manage conflict correctly. I think there's a part B to the question. What's the part B? So I've already mentioned your speaker is muted.
Oh, my speaker? Can you hear me now?
I've mentioned all the, yeah, I think I've mentioned it is important and all the things that you must consider.
Yes, she wants to know what to note when applying effective communication. What are the things to note? Can you hear that?
Yeah, so one of the things there are a number of things to note, but actually understanding each. I think empathy is at the core of it, having empathy. And for you to achieve empathy, you need to understand your audience. And some of the things that will allow you to understand your audience is to understand their perspective. Where are they coming from? So that's one of the things you must know. Where is this person coming from? You meet somebody today and say, that person is always stubborn. Because where he comes from, it could be that what you keep doing over and over is a trigger for his stubbornness. So you must apply empathy in the understanding of your audience, even in your own too. So for instance, I have a friend who says she's not confrontational. So when I do something, instead of her to call me and say, Muti, you did this, she'll go and tell somebody else. Then the person will now tell me. And every time they did that, I used to get very angry, like really angry, like somebody killed someone in my village. And I will be angry. And then they keep saying, Amuti doesn't want to listen to correction. And it used to annoy me because I didn't think that I didn't want to listen to correction. I was just angry. So one day I sat down and I thought, why does it make me angry when they do this? And this is why I grew up in a home where if you did something to me, Agama, I just come to you and say, babe, this is what you did. I didn't like it. Please don't do it again. Apparently, that person grew up in a polygamous home where every time you walk up to somebody and say, you did this, it always leads to conflict. So and this was not something they told me. I had to sit down and say, why does she do it? I don't know, maybe something happened and it clicked that, oh, maybe this is why she says she's not confrontational. So they grew up to believing that in order to avoid conflict, you shouldn't tell the person directly, tell somebody else to say it. But me, I see it as gossiping. You people are just gossiping about me. And I don't want to be gossiped about. So every time they give me feedback that way, I get angry. Don't gossip about me. Tell me. Why do you need to tell the third person? So now that I get it, when they send feedback like that, I'm not annoyed. The last time somebody called and said, Muti, they said this. I would usually have said, really? So she cannot pick the phone to tell me. I said, okay, no problem. I'm going to call her. And then I call her and say, hey, so what did they say I did? So I wasn't angry because I get her now. So the conflict has gone because there's now understanding of my audience, their attitude, why they do what they do, what motivates them. So in order for you to resolve conflict in whatever situation, you need to at least put aside your prejudice, put aside your perspective. Your perspective is our perspective actually is a terrible filter to active listening because we just filter everything the way we are. So this same person, when I give her feedback directly, she thinks Muti is very aggressive. I'm not aggressive. So I come and say, I don't like what you did. And that day she was mad. Why are you aggressive like this? And I'm like, but I'm just telling you, you offended me now. Aren't you just supposed to say sorry? But she kept seeing it as because that's the way she was wired. So you need to understand your audience, you need to understand you, and then show some empathy. Don't be saying things like, can they unlearn it? It's not easy to unlearn it. It is not easy at all. So just show empathy.
Thank you very, very much. So for the sake of time, we won't be taking any further questions, but I'd like to really thank you, Ms. Mutiat Olagoke, for coming on this episode today. You have done really well. You've answered our question, and then you have taught us a whole lot about how to effectively communicate. And to our audience out there, we want to thank you especially for being part of today's episode and for staying till this time. Thank you very much, LetslearnTV, sponsors of this program, Brainiac, STEM and Robotics, and STEMacademy.io. Also, if you haven't clicked on the subscribe button, please do well to click on the subscribe button and also click to get our notifications because you don't want to miss any of our episodes on this program. So thank you once again, Ms. Mutiat. We hope that next time we call you, you will be coming on the show to tell us more about related issues. Thank you all once again. Thank you to the technical crew.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, everybody. Once again, my name is Arama Jisuobo, and I'm out.